Gaming PCs can be expensive, especially with the prices of RAM and SSD spiking these days. But that doesn't mean you have to pay a small fortune just to get started playing some games. I was browsing Facebook Marketplace last week and saw this HP Victus 15L desktop listed for $350. It was advertised as having an i5-12400, an RTX 3050, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a 512 gig SSD. One big variable with these Victus desktops is the power supply. They can be found with either a 350 watt or 500 watt power supply. That 150 watts makes a big difference in the future upgradability and longevity of the system. I messaged the seller to see if they could tell me which it had, and they sent back a photo of the label indicating it is indeed the 500 watt power supply. I made them an offer of $300 cash and they accepted, so I was able to pick this up for $300 flat. It came in pretty dirty and dusty inside, but in working condition. And as a bonus, the SSD that was advertised as 512 gigabytes was actually a full terabyte. The RTX 3050 is the slowest dedicated RTX card out there, but just because it is an RTX card, it can still use key features like DLSS. There are a few different variations of the 3050, but luckily this is the best one that you want to look for. It's the 8GB VRAM version. The 3050 is definitely not the fastest card on the market, but it supports things like DirectX 12 and it's still getting driver updates, so I wanted to see how it performs in a few games. The way it was though, this thing was hot and loud when I got it. The CPU cooler was pretty dusty, and the inside of that single fan 3050 was absolutely caked with dust all over the heatsink. GPU temps were getting up into the mid-80s even with the side panel completely off, and that single fan was screaming like a banshee. Luckily, this was a pretty easy fix, and cleaning out the GPU shroud, CPU cooler, and the chassis made a noticeable difference in the temperatures and noise. It didn't do a lot to change the performance though. I ran TimeSpy before and after the cleaning, and while there was a little bit of a performance difference, it was really nothing crazy. How does this $300 desktop PC perform in games though? Let's take a look at a few and find out. First up we have Fortnite at native 1080p with high textures, medium shadows, epic view distance, and everything else on low. We get a pretty respectable frame rate, mostly over 100 frames per second. This was in DX12 mode, so if you wanted a smoother frame rate, you could always switch to performance mode at the sacrifice of a little bit of the visual effects. Next we have Red Dead Redemption 1, and this isn't the hardest game to run, but it is a good one. And this 8GB 3050 was capable at running it at high settings, 4K, with DLSS on quality. Now while this isn't really a 4K GPU, just being able to, activate DLSS is going to make a big difference if you want to play this on like a 1440p or 4K screen, not necessarily meaning you're going to natively render your games at 4K on a 3050. I also recorded some video before and after cleaning the GPU out, and I'll try to put those up side by side here. Look at the difference in GPU temps. Forza Horizon 5 was able to run at high settings 4K with DLSS on performance. This is a pretty well optimized game, but I was actually pretty surprised that the 3050 ran it that well at 4K, even though we did have DLSS turned on pretty aggressively. While it's been able to run all the games pretty well so far, some newer AAA games can definitely bring this RTX 3050 to its knees. I ran Oblivion Remastered at native 1080p on the low settings, and I got some false hope in the beginning dungeons where I was getting 70-80 frames per second, but as soon as I stepped out into the open world, performance fell off a cliff. I had to keep it on low settings, 1080p, but turn DLSS all the way down to balanced to keep it at 60-ish FPS. That's a pretty low native rendering resolution. I think it's like 540p. So yeah, there's definitely some sacrifices that you're gonna have to make in newer titles on a 3050. All in all though, I think this was a pretty solid pickup for $300. A 12400 itself starts around $100 on eBay, and a 3050 is about $125. That means we effectively got a case, power supply, motherboard, RAM, SSD, and Windows 11 for about $75. While it's not going to max out the latest AAA games, it'll still run just about anything if you're willing to sacrifice resolution and graphics settings. I think this little PC is capable of a lot more than what the RTX 3050 will allow it to do though. make sure you're subscribed. In the next video, we're gonna upgrade this thing to a whole different tier of performance. Thank you for watching along. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll catch you in the next one.